Welcome to the Tuesday, May 13th, 2025 meeting of the Marinwood Community Services District. We'll start with a call to order and a pledge of allegiance. All right. Go work.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thanks you guys.
Small group, it's easy to know, doesn't know all the words.
Or someone who's not saying it.
All right. Is there anyone who wants to make a change to the agenda? Any questions? Okay.
What do we want maybe to bring, because
Right, we're gonna do
you
that
guys
there.
are gonna do that, do you want us to then move up the fire department matters also to before district matters so that you guys can then leave?
That would be great.
Okay, is that okay?
It's fine with me, but I think you have to make a,
No?
No.
no, just, all right. We're gonna move item G up,
Trying to swap F and G.
I think it has, well, let me ask this. Eric, can we move it above public comment on open items? Is that,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So let's move item,
G to after item C.
that is correct. Thank you. All right, thank you for that suggestion. That's a great idea. Okay. We're actually gonna start tonight a little bit differently. We're gonna start in a public hearing. We're gonna do the introduction and first reading of the ordinance 2025-01 and ordinance of the Marinwood Community Services District to designate fire hazard safety zones in local responsibility areas. We're just gonna open this up. We're not gonna read it.
So what we're gonna do, Chris, is at one point, what I'm gonna need is a motion that is a motion to introduce ordinance 2015-01 to designate fire hazard severity zones in local responsibility areas, waive further reading of the ordinance, and refer to it by title only. I'll give you a little quick synopsis on this, and I'm going to turn it over to somebody who knows much more about it all than I do, and then you can open up to any level of public comment, which.
Right?
We're gonna have lots of.
And then we'll have a motion and a second and a vote.
Okay.
And then this item will actually be coming, the ordinance will be coming back on the agenda, likely within the consent calendar based on any further feedback
Okay.
received, to be fully adopted as an ordinance, and then it has to be submitted to the state fire marshal's office, so on and so forth.
Cool.
Yeah, so if you're ready to move forward on this, I gave you, fairly detailed staff report. Background on this is basically the California Office of the State Fire Marshal, under the direction of CAL FIRE, has issued updated what's known as a fire hazard severity map for the entire state, even though they released these at different times. Ours was released, I believe, on February 24th. There is a review and a comment period, and then the district has 120 days by which to adopt this ordinance, which then adopts the map as presented or with heightened changes. You can't lower or request or appeal any of the designations to be lower than what they are, but my understanding is if you want to adopt something higher than what they are, you can. With that said, and before I turn this over really quickly, we do have this publicly posted on our website. There is direction on that page on how to submit comment if any members from the public wanted to submit comment. We've received no comments up to this time, but we'll likely leave it open leading up to final adoption, and then decide where best to place it from there. With that, Kate Anderson, who works as the Wildfire Program Manager, did I get that right? With Santa Fe Fire Department, has offered her time to come in and speak to this in a much more informed way than I personally am able to do. I will say, Kate, when the whole MWPA thing was really getting started and we were really looking at all of our efforts towards wildfire prevention, vegetation management, Kate was the original person that we worked with, and she's been absolutely stellar to work with over several years now at this point. Knows her stuff. She's a registered forester. She's very professional at what she does, and she's been a huge resource to this agency. So Kate, I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
And then anything else that you would like to add to what's going on here?
Great. Eric, that was a wonderful introduction. I made a map that I don't think is included, yes, here.
There's
Oh, is
the,
it zoomed
there's,
in?
It's zoomed in.
okay, so I was attempting that,
Thank
that's
you.
why I pulled out my phone,
Thank
and I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So we're gonna walk through this a little bit more in detail.
Can I explain one thing really quick?
Yes.
That map is the official, the smaller one, is the official map from the State Fire Marshal Office. That's the one that has to be included along with the ordinance, and it covers all of the unincorporated areas of Marin, even though we're only responsible for this teeny little sliver. They didn't have a map like that just for Marinwood. They do have those for cities and towns that have fire responsibility, but for small agencies like ours, they didn't have it. So Kate kind of tried to help out a little bit.
Thank you,
Yeah.
because this was not working.
No.
And I couldn't understand it when I was reading it, so I was, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I decided to make a map zooming in on Marinwood to really demonstrate kind of what these maps are, how they impact Marinwood, how they impact the rest of the county, and what the next steps are. So because I don't have a formal presentation, I'm just gonna walk through.
Yeah,
kind of the
please,
main
thank you
points.
so much.
Of course. So I think what I'd like to point out first is that, and Eric mentioned this, that there are state responsibility areas and local responsibility areas, and Marinwood has both designations, which complicates things a little bit. It doesn't complicate it, but there's a little bit more nuances to how these fire hazard severity zones are designated and when they have been designated. So before 2025, the fire hazard severity zones have been mapped in just the SRA for the moderate, high, and very high designations. This year, CAL FIRE has released all of the designated zones for the rest of the LRA within the state. So San Rafael just got our maps, everybody else in the county also did, and the differences here are the areas that are not hashed out, that is the LRA, they have designations that will need to be adopted by ordinance at your next meeting. So that's what we're looking at today. For the most part, within the Community Services District, the designations that were allocated to the SRA very much transition in a logical way to the rest of the LRA. So you can see kind of the hashed out area, it's a lighter orange that transitions quite nicely into the brighter orange, that's the LRA. Yes, so everything that's kind of shaded a little bit lighter and has the hash marks is the SRA, the state responsibility area, and then the LRA is that solid orange and yellow, where we have the high designation and the moderate designation. So what you'll be designating and adopting are just the areas within the LRA, so just a portion of the district itself. The other nuance about these maps, and we get a lot of questions about insurance lately and how will these maps impact my insurance, and the big distinction here is that these are hazard maps, not risk maps. They're not structure loss models, and they focus specifically on the noted hazards, which are physical characteristics or conditions on the ground that create a likelihood of fire happening, and also coupled with the expected fire behavior and outcome over a longer period of time. So insurance models are based on more of the mitigation measures, kind of those short-term differences, where these are meant to be long-term planning tools that can span decades, that aren't reliant on kind of the short-term development or any other impacts to the land or the conditions to an area.
So lest the insurance companies decide to change how they're billing people due to risk or the sorts of things, then this should not impact people's insurance.
These maps haven't been factored in.
Okay.
So insurance companies have their
As long
own
as
risk
they don't
models.
change anything that they're doing, yeah.
Correct, yeah.
What Kate just said is key. They have their own
Yeah.
risk analysis technology that they use specifically for their purposes. They're not using these maps.
Yeah, and then risk is just the potential damage a fire can cause to an area under the existing conditions, which includes the modifications, the mitigation measures, all the fuel reduction projects we're doing, defensible space around specific structures, or those short-term changes to a landscape. So, I think the other piece on this map, and knowing that this is a little bit more informal, if there's questions that come up, we can just talk about them in real time. The other piece to note on this map, you can see it kind of dotted in a lighter gray, kind of within and around the LRA there. That is the wildland urban interface. And what's unique about this is it's been adopted by the county, and what the wildland urban interface is essentially exactly that. It's where urban development, residential development meets or directly abuts a wildland area. So that's where we factor in more of the risk. And the wildland urban interface is very specific zone and really more of a theory to describe that transition from wildlands into our communities and vice versa. And so what we've noted so far and why we're not requesting or recommending any changes to the maps is that all the areas covered by these new designations are already within the buoy. So we feel like they're pretty aligned, and that's going to have some impacts on what this means for individual parcels in a second when I get to it. The other piece to just keep in mind about how these zones are determined, CAL FIRE's had multiple iterations of their hazard models, starting from the 1980s, really focusing on kind of the major factors of terrain, expected fire behavior, how we think embers are going to react or behave during a fire, climate, and fire history, and the vegetation on the ground. So this newest iteration, CAL FIRE's developed model with the latest science to really pinpoint where these designations should be. And one of the things that's changed is that in the LRA, only the very high fire hazard severity zones were designated, where now all three of those designations are. And so what I haven't shown on here, but I think is worth noting if we look back in time to previous maps, is that Marinwood did have a very high fire hazard, very high fire hazard severity zone designation, which has been overwritten with this newest iteration, and that designation has been essentially revoked.
So we're just high instead of very high.
Yes, so it has been reduced.
Do you believe that that is, at least in part, because of all the work that the county's been doing with the MWPA?
That isn't factored in.
Oh, it's not, okay.
Because we were talking about like those short-term mitigations
Sure.
haven't been, and they did this statewide.
Okay,
So,
okay.
our specific mitigations haven't, but I think they've updated their model to reflect a little bit more accurately.
Okay, so
And-
just better data, better science?
Yeah.
Because we
Okay.
haven't had a fire,
Yes.
like a big fire?
What's that?
Is it true, is it because we haven't had a big fire?
That,
And
I
by
don't.
big, I mean the whole hillside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel
Right.
like comparatively speaking, when you look at the rest of
Sorry.
the state and some of the fire activity
Correct.
we've seen.
Compared to what it used to do.
Cause it's interesting to me that the designation would have gone backwards, would have gotten lower
Mm-hmm.
from very high to high.
Yeah, and we saw this in Nevada and a few other areas in the county as well. I don't know the specifics of how that got modeled before, and kind of the changes to the inputs for the output here. But I do think it reflects the on-the-ground hazard a little bit more accurately. The other pieces is, one, that local jurisdictions did not create these maps, CAL FIRE did. So we don't have direct input on kind of where we think the designation should be, but there is the option, Eric mentioned this, to elevate any of the designations on the map or to add additional areas if we see fit. For the most part, I think this covers it quite accurately. And we recommend that move forward with no changes there. There's also a few policy implications that are changing a little bit. One of which, and this might have been a nice handout for you, but Eric, maybe we can send the directors a link to this. But one of the things that's impacted with more of the high hazard designation are hazard disclosures, which is part of AB 38. It's an assembly bill that mandates that residential resale inspections are required in the high hazard designations. I crunched a few numbers, and this is approximately 900 homes in Marinwood in the LRA that qualify under that designation. So anybody who is selling a home is required to essentially have a defensible space inspection and disclose any hazards that have been found prior to sale, and hopefully they're mitigated beforehand.
Right.
But just a really nice point, you know, as we have a lot of transfer of ownership, I know we have in Santa Fe, probably likely in Marinwood as well.
But that's only in the high.
Only in the
So
high,
the yellow and the clear, no.
correct. But we still recommend it at any point.
Do you have a bigger one by chance?
Was that what that's?
Yeah.
I can send this out electronically.
For right now.
We wanna see if your house is on.
Yeah.
The ideal way to look at this is to go to the link that's in the staff report, because you can actually drill down to a very specific address, you can zoom in, you can do all of that. It's a much more interactive map than what they give us for this purpose.
Gotcha.
Kate took her time to make that thing actually look like
Right.
this thing.
I feel like I'm taking a geography test, but like, it's a map that had all the names removed.
You gotta do the
This is
There
my
are no
neighborhood.
labels.
This is my neighborhood, I love it.
Now, there's 3 labels in there, they're
You're-
just very small print.
Right.
You're orange.
I'm orange. Yep, that's the way it works.
And most definitely one.
You are definitely orange. I'm like, am I?
Well, there is only 2 incredibly small pockets that aren't designated. Some of these are located in the Stones, and then actually this park and the middle school are the only other area that's not designated on there. If you-
And part of a street?
Possibly, I don't know, I'd have to look at
I know, that's
the
fine.
interactive version of the map. Otherwise, as you start to work your way out from there, you get into a moderate zone, and as you start to work your way out from there, you get into the high zones.
Correct.
There are no very high in here
Right.
currently. That might change when they release the next round of maps, and I think they do this every 5 years.
I don't think there's been a standard interval.
Okay. Well, whatever that is.
Whatever it is.
These might change, but anyway, Kate, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the other policy implication that does apply here, and we'll have a few homes that qualify, are the building code, the chapter 7A requirements. So these are the fire resistant building materials, hardy board, and non-combustible materials. That will be expanded outside of the WUI and any high areas as well. So right now it's just within that wildland urban interface buffer. But with these designations, there are a few areas outside of that WUI buffer that will qualify under that high designation. So didn't crunch those numbers, but it'll be a number of homes as well for new construction or maybe major remodels. Don't want to speak there, but perhaps.
Okay.
And following up, that's about all the information I have prepared. And just the next steps are introducing the ordinance and adopting within 120 days, which puts us into June.
Right.
Hey, can I ask
Please.
questions that are
Just,
standard. So whether or not we do anything, do we have to do something, or will this automatically be like, I'm just,
I don't know what the consequences are for not doing anything, but it
Okay.
says that every local agency responsible for fire must adopt it.
okay,
So, yeah, I don't think you have the right to not adopt it.
'Cause you know, there's some
Eventually they
things
come
that,
yelling
like-
at us and say, hey, we never got your completed ordinance.
well, because you know, there's some things that we vote on that if we had just,
When we're
Not
looking at
voted,
policy,
so
it's,
the
yeah,
policy
it's-
would be mandated to us anyways, and so that's
Right.
what I just wanted to
No,
know.
for lack of a better term, this is pretty much mandated
Okay,
by the state.
okay,
Mhm.
It is. I
Yeah.
can't remember the government code section.
not that I'm saying,
I
I'm not gonna
put it
go
in
for it, I
there,
just wanted to be clear that there
the-
was
she
not
wanted
an
to know if
option.
she was forced to do it.
You're pretty much being,
Willingly?
it's what they like to refer to as an unfunded mandate.
Okay,
So yeah,
so that should be reactionary, okay.
gotta do it.
Alright.
Did I leave out the government code? It's like 52118 or something like
So-
that.
Yes.
I realize at some point you just have to draw a line, but it's just, some of the lines are a little interesting in terms of like, you're on the same block and your house is yellow and the house behind you is orange.
Like whether you go to Mary Silvera or whether you go to
Lucas
Dixie
Valley.
or
Yeah,
Lucas
Valley.
Valley.
Yeah.
Okay,
One block
It
might
just-
go
it
to Mary
doesn't-
Silvera
it
and one
doesn't.
might.
I mean, it matters, but it's
Well,
kind of
yeah, I
a
mean, I
little
feel like school
arbitrary,
districts
I
might be a
guess.
little more arbitrary than like the fire.
And fire?
Yeah, and it might feel
I mean, like-
a little bit less specific and customized to Marinwood because this modeling was done on a statewide basis. So, you know, the modelers can't know all the intricacies of every single community.
Right,
But a big part, and they have a really good informational video of like how the modeling, like how all the layers that go into the modeling, what the inputs are, and a piece of it is kind of that proximity, kind of like the WUI boundary, the proximity from open space or those wildland areas. So there's like the wildlands itself, and then kind of the transition into the communities. So obviously we have the high that's closer to the ridge, and then moving inland a little bit more, or kind of away from the wildlands, you get into that moderate designation. So I know it's kind of funny on the line, and there's some parcels where like half of the parcel is one and half of the parcel is the other one. They kind of default up.
Alright. Anybody else have any other questions? Do
No,
it.
I just find it fascinating that with the winds here, it's not all orange. Because it's
You're
so windy.
within your authority to.
No, I'm fine with it, I'm just saying.
but you guys are happy, like, knowing what you guys know about our neighborhood, you feel like this isn't underestimating us too much?
No,
Okay,
I think it's very
And who am I to say
yeah, you be
that it's
quiet.
not okay? I'm just saying when it's so windy, it's always, it's windy here.
Yeah,
But it's not the same wind in the whole neighborhood, depending on where you go.
Oh, I'm sorry, do you have different wind than I do?
I
At the end
don't,
of the
because
block?
I think
I think we're veering a little bit.
So, anyway, does anybody else have any questions related to what's on our chart here?
Only to answer Savon's question, it's government code 51179, specifically formed under Assembly Bill, Senate Bill 63 that mandates the adoption of all 3 fire hazard severity classes within LRAs by local fire authorities.
okay, yeah, I just
There you go.
wanted to make sure.
So, yeah.
Alright, so we need a motion here.
You need a motion basically reciting exactly what I put under staff recommendation in my staff report.
Okay,
Go to that.
I'm there.
Oh,
Anybody
are you
wanna-
looking at me to do it?
Yeah.
Where exactly?
On the agenda?
No, staff report. He said. He said staff report.
Yep. That
Okay,
part right there.
Okay, staff report, alright. So,
You're moving that.
I'm moving that we
Right.
introduce ordinance 2025-01 to designate fire hazard severity zones in local responsibility areas and waive further reading of the ordinance and refer to it by title only.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those
Oh,
opposed?
nailed it.
Did she say aye?
That's it.
Yeah,
And then, like I said, the ordinance will come back on for a formal vote and approval.
perfect.
Okay, I didn't hear you, Lisa, I thought you were gonna say.
Nope.
Sorry, can you speak up next time? I didn't hear you.
All right. Okay, moving on.
Or we said it was all three.
Yep, Kate, thank you again.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Appreciate your
Thank you.
willingness
Thank
to
you for
come
the extra
down.
map.
Thank you.
All right, item G, Fire Department Matters, Chief Officer Report and Activity Summary. Thank you.
Thank you. So just give a brief report. Staffing, one of our engineers came back this last week, so we're up by staffing by one. And then we have another young man that's started the academy on May 1st. He's now in his second or third week academy. He is very green as far as paramedic certification, so we are keeping a little bit extra time on him with him to do the EMS stuff and do the paramedic stuff with us and being on the ambulance. So he will be doing that, continue to do that. Our hope is to be able to get him out in the field as fast as possible. More than likely what we're gonna wind up doing is assigning to whatever shift he's gonna be assigned, or he's gonna be assigned to the ambulance until he gets out of the academy at that point. And that way we'll release him right into that. So he'll get exposure to the Engine 58 crews, but also he's gonna have kind of an intensive internship or mentorship that he's gonna have. But we feel like we could, I really have some really good mentors right now. I really feel that he could benefit from that, so that he'll be in the process of that there.
And how long is the academy?
It's 2 weeks officially. So what we did, he does have a little bit of experience. We did find some initial issues that he had picking up, but since last week he's done a lot better. So he's picking up on it a lot faster. So he's this young man's name's Tristan, smart young man, and just I think he's starting to pick up on stuff fairly fast and stuff like that. So what we wind up doing is we have a lateral academy, so it's 2 experienced firefighters that we have, but we hired at the same time, and basically just put them in that academy. We felt that with Tristan, we could expand or contract whether if he was doing really good, then we could fast track him. If he's not, then we just slow down a little bit. But it does allow us that flexibility without having to spend 8 weeks in the academy like we would on a traditional entry-level employee on there. But it does allow us to expand and contract it, especially once we get him on the field and stuff. We're able to do that stuff. But our basic thing was basic fire hose, ladders, and SCBAs, practicing on that, and then expanding from there. So yeah, that's the status on him there. Engine 58 responded as part of a structure fire May 5th over in Terralinda. It was part of the initial fire attack. And yesterday they had a plane down at the San Rafael airport. That Engine 58 was first on scene. Basically that plane was just lost their hydraulics and wasn't able to get the landing gear and basically did a belly flop on the runway over at the San Rafael airport there. So Engine 58 was first on scene on that one there. Currently we're doing, as far as the training division, we have wildland training going on. And we'll be moving forward with that throughout probably next month, just finishing that stuff up there. And that's kind of where we're at with the training in there. I did get a report from fire prevention, and obviously with Kate, she gave a report on what's going on with that, and that's where we're at. Is there any questions that you have or anything? I think Eric can discuss anything regarding the dorm, which I just finally got a chance to look at it the other day.
Good.
It is great. I mean, I was like impressed how spacious it is for such a small area. Has anybody gone over there? It is. It's impressive.
Yeah, I have it in my
Yeah.
in my report. I'll definitely talk a little bit
Cool.
more about it.
Cool.
Awesome. Anybody have any questions?
Nope.
All right. Chief, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
You too.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's go back up to the consent calendar. Anybody have any questions about the minutes or the bill? Pretty straightforward.
No minutes.
I'll move to approve consent calendar.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. public comment, open time for items not on the agenda. There is no public presence, so we're gonna move on to item F, district matters. F1 fiscal year 25-26 proposed district operating budget.
Great, thank you. Again, as I try my darndest to do, I gave you a pretty detailed staff report on everything here. I just kind of highlighted some things I wanted to touch base before I'm happy to take any questions. Again, as you can see, there has been a level of adjustments to bring this from the last time you saw it to the kind of final recommended budget. Those include projections for our ad valorem property taxes, which I'll talk more about, utility expense projections, payroll service fees, that now more properly reflect not only our transition to a new provider and additional services, but are actually much better allocated per department at this point in time based on employee counts and what are driving the fees, which is, again, talk about that a little bit more. And then all the rec program supply needs, school district facility rental costs, we got final on all of that, so all of that has gone into there. A couple other really kind of quick notes. As always, the budget to actuals are in there through the end of April. They're not fully vetted, so they're subject to some minor journaling as they are more thoroughly reviewed. And within those, it's very important to note that there is a large chunk, approximately $960,600 that are actually deferred revenues. So at the end of the year, that and then whatever is brought in that is applicable from this date until then will actually be pushed to revenue for next fiscal year. So when you're looking at the actuals and you're like, wow, we're so high above, $1 million of that is actually attributed to next fiscal year.
Yeah.
And then I provided you the breakdown there. That said, within our general treasury fund, after looking at everything and accounting for the restricted funds that are in there, which are also a little over $1 million to 1.3 million, we actually had a net cash fund balance as of 4/30 of 9.53 million, which is good, actually better than I was expecting it to be at this point in time last year. Words of caution with that as always. I mean, we have a lot of unfunded liabilities, unfunded accrued liabilities that need to, and should start to be getting addressed and thought about. And while not directly related to this budget, I do think given our current cash position and kind of where we are, that we're definitely finally probably in a solid financial position to begin the process of really researching and potentially establishing more formal reserve funds. Obviously, as a form of reserve, we do have our OPEB trust. You can set up something similar for pension, but then you also have your kind of much more common reserves, which, capital equipment replacement, emergency operating, things along those lines, and then looking at proper investment vehicles and or opening a separate fund within the treasury by which to hold those. So that pulls them out of general funds and requires very formal board actions to move those, but any of the options we'd be looking at would be very liquid. So it's not like you'd be tying them up in a 6-month deposit account or something like that. This would be very liquid. You can be able to move funds within a matter of days. But more to come on that, and hopefully we can just get head above water long enough to actually pay attention and focus on that and make that happen. But the long and short of it for this particular budget, looking at it, it does conservatively project a net operating gain of approximately $437,000. That's very consistent with what we have been looking at for the last several years. If I kind of look at some of the things, line items I really wanted to kind of bring attention to on the property tax, as mentioned earlier, I am remaining conservative on that. Total amount budgeted represents approximately a 1% increase over what is actually anticipated this year. Recent communications from the county are stating that they are actually expecting the rate of growth of property tax to soften So meaning the rate, it'll still grow to some degree, but it's not gonna grow at the same rates that it has been, and they're expecting that to occur over the next, several fiscal years, so the foreseeable years before they'll launch another projection on it. Interest, I've remained very conservative on that, given that, these are kind of in low-risk investment markets. But there's been a lot of volatility with the investment markets lately as well, so a lot of agencies don't budget interest at all. For us, we budget such a minimal amount, I don't think it matters, but I wouldn't recommend changing that based on, oh, look at how much interest we earned this year. I tell you, Q3 is gonna be much lower than Q2 was. So it's just staying conservative there. And then on our SDRMA, we still don't have final rates from them for workers' comp or insurance. They've provided estimates on what they expect increases to be, so this budget reflects those estimates, but we won't receive final rates until June. This is similar to what happened last year, but I do feel we're gonna be a lot closer than I was last year, because I think they've given us better, tighter estimate ranges. And then just on, the other big increase was water and sewer. We really kind of analyzed 12-month usage on that, and also really broke down, they completely changed the structure of their fees. And their fees used to be based on meter sizes, now they're based on water usage. We use a lot of water, our fees became extraordinarily more expensive. We did have an issue with water lately, recently. Luke will speak some more to that in his report. Otherwise, the only other things I wanted to point out, if you look at the rec department, the payroll service fees did go up a lot, but that's because really kind of trying to break this down and allocate the fees to where they are incurred. The rec department has 250 staff in a prime season, so that's where a lot of these fees are being generated from. Plus, the rec department is also utilizing some tools that we haven't had available to us with the prior, such as automated timesheets and time scheduling and things like that. So it's much better than getting a stack of
Yes.
paper timesheets that you are hopeful to be able to, is that a 5, is that a 3, or math that doesn't compute or anything else.
So it
make
took me
it
hours.
a lot, yeah. On the fire department side, both the service contract revenue line, which is for the county farm and county facilities, and the CSA 13, those are educated estimates, but final won't be able to be computed on either of those until we are completely closed this fiscal year. We can reconcile it with last year's estimate, so it's always a little bit different. I try to stay conservative. I'd rather under budget that revenue than over budget. And then, as you notice, the other big change in fire is there's no longer anything listed under long-term debt for principal or interest, and that's because we have paid off the fire engine in whole. So that is owned in full, and there's no longer a payment associated with it. Otherwise, if there's any other questions, I just didn't feel the need to read through every single one of these bullet points, many of which have been included in prior packets. For this packet, I try to include everything that's been shared over the last 3 board meetings.
Anybody have any questions?
I have a question, but I'll ask it later because it doesn't necessarily have something to do, it's just about the youth rec programs decrease. Just a general question about it later.
Like a non-meeting question or a meeting question?
Well, it's a meeting question, I'm just wondering, are there less kids coming to the preschool?
Not necessarily. A lot of the youth rec program change, and Luke can also speak to this. Our after-school program is a big component of that, and when the district eliminated busing,
Yeah.
we no longer have 2 different buses that drop off right here full of kids from 2 different
Yeah.
schools, so that greatly decreased demand isn't the right word, because I think there's still a lot of demand out there for these programs, but it decreased the ability to get kids here for our programs. So that factors in. The preschool, we did take a look at kind of what those realistic projections were, so there was a little bit there, but that also, youth rec programs also includes all the little things that happen during the school year. It's basically every program outside of summer camp.
Okay.
So, you know, we kind of looked at that. The big drop was the after-school
Was the
program
after-school,
from
and
what
I
was
knew that was
budgeted.
happening, but I didn't know if there was other things, so, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're kind of in a transitional phase. We're looking at the continued trend for the after-school demand or lack of people being able to leave their kids here. And the department's exploring what we're gonna do with those hours, and we've actually limited days for the kids that are coming, like to accommodate where the demand actually is, and then looking to add some other programs. And the days that are that we have fewer kids or don't have kids at all, and so we're kind of in a transitional period for like dealing with that. So we were trying to be very conservative with what we're budgeting for that.
Okay.
Cool.
And the district doesn't think that they're gonna be able to do busing next year?
I haven't heard anything
Okay.
that says no signs.
I can have a
We even-
sunny outlook
does the-
on life
Does the
and.
school district even own the buses anymore?
Nope. They have sold off their buses, they contract out their busing, and they are basically providing kind of the bare minimum
Yeah.
amount of busing right now. I think the only actual school bus feeding a school is for Mary Silvera. I think has a bus that's taking kids from across the freeway
Yeah.
over and then back, and then you have special education busing, which is required by law. But otherwise, they have, their transportation program is almost non-existent.
That's what I thought, okay.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
That was Lisa and Savon.
Yes.
I felt like I should not always be the one motioning. I know you kept looking at me, but I wasn't gonna be the one always motioning.
I like their second.
It's, Eric, I really appreciate how much time you and your staff put into this, so that when we get to the approval part, it's not, there's like no surprises. And I just, the way you guys do this in a cyclical nature is really impressive, because I can only imagine how much time this takes.
Well, I
But I
appreciate that, thank you. I also appreciate you acknowledging that it's a team that puts this together.
Yeah.
I'm, Luke and his team spend a lot of time working on this before they even get to me, and then we sit down and spend a lot of time going over it as a team and looking at kind of the entire scope of things. I ask a lot of questions to which I'm sure they get annoyed with.
They're supposed to, you're the boss.
But it comes together, so, and it definitely takes all of our management level staff to make it happen, so.
Well, I just think like the strength of the district financially is based upon all of that time and effort. Really, it comes through, even though, probably a lot of people don't look at it. I think it really comes through, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, we look at it, and I like the fact we do it every month, because it's like bite-sized pieces that you're digesting and really understanding, and then you have a new question the next month that then can get really,
Yeah.
instead of one long, huge,
Well,
oops, I forgot to ask this question.
Believe me when I tell you, creating it and putting it all together happens in bite-sized pieces. As time allows and as new information presents itself, we've got a pretty good cycle for how we kind of go through it, what we're looking at for, it works, so,
And we
Very cool.
appreciate it.
thank you.
All right, item F2, district manager report.
Sure, just to follow up with what Chief Roman was saying earlier, the fire station bunk room project is essentially complete. We actually have a final inspection occurring tomorrow, so that should close out the permit. Don't anticipate any level of problems, all pre-inspections have gone just fine. They did this past weekend start with the bed installation for the kind of pull down Murphy beds. They need to come down one other day just to finish the framing, but 8 of the 9 beds are actually fully installed and usable. They're just kind of a little bit more open. Some wood framings will go around them, so when you close it up, it just kind of looks more like a closet instead of a bed framing that's there. They fit great. I definitely, I love when we go through these processes with a contractor that we haven't used before, that turns out to be really good to work with, because it gives us another kind of preferred contractor to add to our list. Integrity Construction, I will say, They were incredibly communicative, they were incredibly timely in getting this done. They can't control inspection schedules, they were detail oriented, I mean, even down to the end of, the little things that weren't totally spelled out in the specs, but, let's fine tune a paint color, let's fine tune the window tinting for these other windows, they were great. So I really, very communicative, very easy to work with. They actually have kind of a broad umbrella of different types of things they do in not only construction, but in facility management. We're actually now talking to them about some other services they provide, as we look at some other potential changes we might need to make to current providers of things like janitorial. They have a part of their business that, does janitorial services and things. So they've been great, and I'm happy that we found them, and I would certainly use them and recommend them.
So they're called Integrity?
Integrity Construction, yeah.
Okay, I read that.
Yep, and they have some, so it's good.
That's the right name.
Yeah, but the room is great. It is 100% a much better living situation. To Chief Roman's point, when you look at it on a piece of paper, you think that these rooms are gonna be very small and tight. They're actually not. They feel much more spacious. I've seen bedrooms in homes here that are smaller than what these turned into be.
I have one of those bedrooms.
Yeah, well, if you have a Cape Cod, you have some of those
Yes.
bedrooms. But the firefighters are very happy with it. We've done a couple extra things in the little foyer area. They set up a monitor that has live feed of all the calls happening, so if they get a call in the middle of the night, when they come out of their thing, they can immediately see what the call is about, any other details that are there. All the rooms are wired with speakers, volume controls, light dimmers, it's such a better setup.
So they're happy. Or
It's such a better setup.
they're happier.
Yeah, they're happy. Yeah, no, they
have
love it.
privacy.
I will tell you
That's
actually, today, as part of our shared services agreement, the third person on is actually a female firefighter from Santa Fe who's over there working. So it's nice for them to be able to come over. They have a private sleeping area, private.
I mean, that was what started this.
So it was always a challenge, and this just makes it much better for anybody involved.
Nice.
On a kind of opposite tone, as I informed, we had submitted a project request through core funding and through MWPA to fund a pretty major rehabilitation need for Queenstone Fire Road. That has not been accepted at this point in time. As it currently stands, Queenstone is not passable. They declined to fund this project, citing, potential liability concerns with the aftermath of grading and erosion and concerns like that, lack of clarity as to project funding eligibility as a quote-unquote capital improvement project. Nothing like this has ever really been proposed, and I knew I was pushing the envelope with it going in. And then just a lack of precedence and policy for this type of work. So with that, what's also been pressed to them is ultimately, once they get through their full budget adoption cycle, to circle back to this and actually bring it up to a board level to make policy level decisions, as well as a legal analysis on eligibility as it's written within Measure C, which is the voter approved initiative, and then policy decisions from the board, their governing body, of which Bill Shea sits on, as to whether or not this is going to be something that they want to fund, this type of a project. So I'm not entirely shocked they didn't accept it and fund it right now, but I'm happy enough to, and we'll keep pressing on them to make sure that, great, then you need a policy statement on it.
Right.
Do you know how much it will cost, or how much you asked for?
We asked for $150,000. We received a few estimates, some were, because we just asked people to ballpark it based on a design and grading plan that we've already had from several years ago. Some estimates were below that, some estimates were above that. The average was right around 150, and that's what we asked for it. Not a large amount of money and relatively small amount. It really wasn't about the funding for them, it was more about a lot of unanswered questions, policy on it, eligibility, liability concerns. Anytime you do work to dirt fire roads in the open space, you have erosion concerns, so on and so forth. And they weren't sure what the liability would be if they funded this through their core funding, as opposed to our direct local funding. So they have some questions that they need to answer on their end. And if nothing else, this kickstarts MWPA staff and board to dive into that. And I won't just let it fall by the wayside, we'll make them dive into it. The good part of this is through those discussions, Chief Weber, who is fire chief from Marin County Fire, has committed some of his resources to at least getting up there and doing maintenance to make this road passable and be able to get us through the fire season. They have equipment, they have operators, and in talking with Chief Weber, I agreed to provide expense for materials and incidentals, which is, I mean, labor and equipment is the big part of everything. So their team actually, I believe, is planning on hopefully starting that work this month as they're finishing up another job at a different fire road in the county that they've been working on. So I certainly appreciate Chief Weber and County Fire for their willingness to help us with that. I tell you right now, if we were to go out and contract it, again, that kind of average estimate was $150,000. This will be a tenth of that.
Interesting. All right,
Yeah.
So,
thank you.
But it won't be probably the full-blown
Right.
design, great, you know, this will be, make this road passable,
Right.
get us through the fire season.
Gravel in the potholes.
so is it considered as, like, looking at what it would be on
It
this?
lives within the state responsibility area, but we own the land.
All right.
Is,
Go for it,
I
yes.
do, I
Yeah,
have.
do it.
So, I feel like it's really critical to get that road fixed.
Mhm.
So, I'm just throwing it out there for discussion, even at a later date. But our board designated funds, if MWPA doesn't,
Mhm.
is that something that we can consider? I know we have other liabilities, I'm not saying that, but is that something that we can consider?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Your board designated funds are quote unquote board designated.
Right.
I know.
You can consider to use those on anything you would like, or we can just look at what's available in our general fund for it too. My case that I was making on for core funding is realizing this portion of this road exists on Marinwood property. It's actually used by multiple agencies. It goes through multiple jurisdictions, which is again part of
Well,
the
it helps
reason why
Novato,
Marin County.
like,
It
and
helps
Marin
Novato,
County,
it helps
it
the
helps-
county, it helps
Correct.
a lot of agencies. And it actually exists throughout, like, you know, it connects to a much broader other network.
Correct.
And it's probably one of the most heavily used and most critical access points to that broader
Correct.
network. And Chief Weber recognizes this, which is why Chief Weber's like, we're gonna
We
get
need
this,
that road.
we're gonna get this going.
Correct.
I understand, whether I agree with it or not, I understand the position that MWPA is taking on it at this time.
Correct.
And again, my bigger emphasis to them is, you need clear direction on this. And that's gonna mean policy level and analysis and everything else, so that way moving forward, are these types of projects eligible, and if so, what are the requirements for funding of these?
I think it's a great request that they look at, and I don't wanna jump the gun and say, okay, let's cover it.
Right.
And then in 2 years ago, okay, we're gonna approve this, and you're like, we
Well,
just
and that's
funded
why
this.
again, I think Chief Weber also recognizes that, and their guys, I mean, they're trained professionals when it comes to their operators and their, for their equipment. They will definitely get this road to a level where it is certainly usable and will maintain at a minimum, and likely longer, but at a minimum, through this fire season, and that gives us that much time to keep working with MWPA on doing a much larger fix. That would be depending on weather conditions. The last time we did a large fix on this was in 2018, and now we're in 2025, and we've had some pretty severe
Yeah.
winters that have come
Yeah.
through. Not that severe winters are going away, I wouldn't say, but you know, a 5 to 7 year major maintenance plan is needed. And unfortunately, this road also had 2 separate incidents in that time. That's a lot of large heavy equipment moving that way. Since this time, this road was also used as a road bringing up equipment when Ponte Trail was, it's had a lot of action happen on it, and unfortunately, they did do some emergency grading during the most recent fire, which was known as the Queenstone Fire, and some of that grading, what didn't happen was them coming back out to kind of finish off some of that work, and it wound up leaving kind of some berms along the side, which completely redirected drainage, which is why this winter it really took a hit, and they recognized that. It was, they recognized having some responsibility for that, so they are looking to come up and make it right for the time being with the time and capacity that they have, but also I'm sure would be happy to work with us on larger, but if they're not available, we have to outside contract it.
Yeah.
That's why we're looking at these other things too.
Well, and I
Because to
think
your
it's-
point, Kathleen, it's critical to eventually get the proper fix done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we just at least need trucks to be able to get, for sure, so.
Yeah, well, you need engines, you need water tenders, I mean, those are all the, you think of, during both those events, there was probably a dozen apparatus that went up those roads.
Correct.
Multiple
You know,
times.
multiple times, yeah, I mean, and these are huge, big pieces of equipment, especially those water tenders, when they're loaded up with water, I mean, they're
Yeah.
heavy. And they're trying to get through there.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a critical road, and nobody disputes the critical nature of that particular fire road.
But I also think that it's nice that they're gonna review it, because we're not the only one with the fire road.
Right,
It's.
right. That said,
Right.
they could easily spend a year's worth of all of their revenue just on repairing fire roads in the county as opposed to more of this kind of,
And we would
management
appreciate
and other
that.
prevention. But my argument also is, this is why you're in zones, and it's up to these local agencies to decide what the priority is. For our agency, we've done a lot of work on reducing fuel.
Correct.
This is our priority project now at this point in
Right.
time, because that reducing
Shifted.
fuel is your last line of defense.
Yeah.
Getting up that road is our first line of defense.
Right.
And I would much rather attack it there and say, well, it was ready if it got to this point,
And
but
get in
we
the yellow
prevented
zone.
it
Yeah.
from getting to this point.
Yeah.
So that, believe me, I was I'm sure I'm not the MWPA staff's favorite
Person, right?
person on our ops committee at this moment in time, but.
I'm sure there are worse.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. And thank you for questioning their decision for them in front of them.
Item H, Park and Rec matters, Recreation and Park Maintenance Activity Report.
Thanks, Chris. News of the past month, I just want to highlight that our recreation supervisor, John Paul, participated in a really great training just like a week ago to become a American Red Cross lifeguard instructor trainer, also known as LGIT, which is kind of like the highest legit, exactly.
Right.
It's the highest level within the lifeguard kind of hierarchy.
That's what it is.
And it was a very rigorous course to train him to be able to, which he already is a lifeguard instructor who teaches the lifeguard training classes, CPR classes, a bunch of different stuff. But this one is a level up that allows him to train instructors. So it's like, who trains the trainers, and so, I went through this course like, over a decade ago, and it was a really, really hard, like, kind of crazy thing. And so I was really happy that he was taking the initiative to go and take that training, and it went really well. And got feedback from the class. He actually had, they brought instructors in from like other states to teach this thing. It's this academy, and some of the participants were from out of state too. It was like a big deal. They don't do these courses very often. So it was right in our backyard. It took place at the Terralinda pool, so it was a real convenient class for him to take, unlike some of the other participants. But he got a lot of positive feedback as they were discussing various training situations and how they run, the various people of the class run their pools. He was continued to be held up as like doing the gold standard for how to approach training lifeguards and our ongoing training program. So it made me feel good that we have a good system in place, and he was recognized for being among the top in the class for having good, high standards for what the American Red Cross considers what they want to see in their programs. So he successfully passed that, and now he'll be able to offer instructor training for people, which will allow us to be able to train more people and offer more lifeguard classes and certify more lifeguards. And there's been a national lifeguard shortage for the past like 10 years or so, and it's always hard to get enough people trained and to offer enough classes, and so he'll be helping that cause and also be able to offer a higher level of training for our pool. So that was really a cool thing that we're excited to take advantage of. And he's already got a lifeguard instructor class planned coming up in the next few weeks, so he's just jumping on it, and we're already going to be training some people to teach classes, so that's really exciting. And then Robin, who is not a lifeguard instructor trainer, but she is a lifeguard instructor and be able to teach a bunch of classes. She's been hard at work getting all of our camp staff trained in CPR and first aid. We have like 200 and some odd summer camp counselors that we have to train every year, and that getting them through CPR training, it's a lot of hours, it's a lot of work, and it takes, she offers like a dozen of these trainings throughout the spring and to get everyone certified before summer, and it's a slog to run so many of those classes, and she does a great job. And so she's been running them. She had some last week. She had one on Saturday. She has one this Friday. She has one this Saturday, and she's just getting everybody through it, getting everybody trained up so that we can ensure that our staff this summer know what to do in an emergency, are trained to take care of business, and that all the kids are safe. And we offer a much higher level of CPR than like your average camp program. We don't just offer like the base level lay person. We offer like the professional rescuer level, which allows our camp staff to be at the same level as our lifeguards, so everyone can kind of work in concert when they're giving any sort of care if we have emergencies. So it's a lot of extra work, but I think it's worthwhile, and we've seen the fruits of that as we've had little emergencies over the years. So I just want to give a shout out to Robin for taking that on and with a good attitude and making we're on track to have all of our staff good to go for the summer camp. So that's been great. On the parks maintenance side of things, Eric mentioned our irrigation. We had an irrigation situation we've been dealing with in the park for a little while this season, and it's been a big project. We've had like back in July, the water district upgraded our meter for the reclaimed water that we use to irrigate the park. So all the sprinklers and the irrigation is on a reclaimed system, and they changed out the meter, upgraded it, which is a good thing, but they did not coordinate that with our staff or tell us about it, and in the process, depressurized the system and turned everything back on, which whenever we need to turn the water off and turn it back on, it's a big procedure where we have to open up all of our sprinklers and bleeder valves and make sure that we let all the air out and make sure we don't put too much pressure in the system. Otherwise we break things, and we're operating 3-inch pipes at 100 pounds per square inch, and it's a really powerful system, and it takes a lot of very careful management to make sure we don't cause damage when the water is getting turned off and on. And so the water district came in, did a repair, but didn't bother to work with us, and potentially did a major off and on with no outlet for the pressure, and then we received a water bill months later showing that we've been leaking a lot of water for those intervening
Can we bill
months.
them for that?
Oh, I'm working on it.
Yeah. So we ended up finding out.
That was my question too.
Yeah, there's a lot of water going somewhere, and so we're like, okay, let's see what we can do. We tried to locate it. Usually, in our experience, when we have pipes leaking, there's a swamp in the park, or there's water pouring into the street or something, and it wasn't obvious, and it was starting to get into the rainy season, so we shut everything off and said, well, we'll just reevaluate it in the spring. So we came back a couple months ago and started to try to find this leak, and this wasn't obvious at all. We started shutting off sections of the park strategically to try to narrow down where the leak was, watching the meter and isolating certain sections of the park. And we finally realized that it was somewhere in the pool complex or towards the street. And we brought out a leak detection company to help us because we just couldn't find it, couldn't figure out where it was. We're digging up all sorts of sections that had been problematic in the past and
Yeah.
found a lot of little leaks, a lot of little drips and this and that, but nothing that was showing, 5 to 7 gallons per minute kind of going out the door. And so we had to bring out a leak detection contractor a couple different times. And he didn't find anything the first time, but told us, hey, add a couple shutoffs here, we'll further isolate some areas, and which we did. And then finally, last week, we're able to, through all these different processes, he's like listening with all these probes, and then he's putting air in the system and listening for bubbling. And then he finally at the end put helium into our system, and then had a helium detection like wand. He's walking around. It looked like some crazy thing from a sci-fi.
It's like the water finder with the stick.
Way beyond that, yeah, way beyond that. And we finally located a spot, like, this is the one thing that we think maybe there's a spot here, and we marked it, and we dug it up. We did find a sizable leak draining down into a hole, going into an abyss, who knows where. So the water was just shooting down into the ground, and disappearing. So that's why it wasn't obvious. The grass was completely dry above it, and the water was just disappearing. So virtually impossible to find. So thankfully, through all these leak detection methods, we were able to find the leak, and we were able to repair that. And I think we should be good moving forward. However, that was the main problem, but there was a lot of little problems that were potentially also caused by all that pressure coming through our system. So we have lots of little leaks that we've been kind of ignoring while we look for the big one, but now we've got no fewer than 6 small things that we also have to repair and valves to clean out or replace. So there's just like 5 holes in the grass out there. There's some out there, and the staff are just we've been digging holes every day for the past month, and so the light at the end of the tunnel is there. I think we've gotten things under control, and things are good, but we have a little bit more work to do. So we're happy to be through that, but pretty disappointed that this all happened in the first place, because of all a phone call saying, hey, we want to do this thing on Tuesday, we could have mitigated all of that, I think, and not had any problems at all. So one silver lining to all this is we brought out a couple, through the leak detection company, some irrigation kind of consultants were helping us out, and I got a lot of good kind of feedback and ideas for how we can run our system more efficiently moving forward, and things that we could be doing better. And so nothing to do with why the leak was there, but just things that I learned a lot about, irrigation maintenance through working with some people. And so that was one little thing I took away. I was like, okay, well, that's a good thing to take away. But the whole thing was pretty unfortunate, and we're pretty disappointed in the water district.
Yeah.
But Eric's been working with them, and it sounds like there's hope that they'll make this right.
Yeah, before Luke moves on, I mean, one of the big problems was the billing cycles happen in 2-month increments.
Mm-hmm.
The meter was changed within the first 2 weeks of one of those 2 months, and then they never read it again for the rest of that period. Then another 2 months passes, and all of a sudden we get a bill for $19,000.
Oh, no.
Right. So I call. Yeah, okay, we'll have somebody get back to you. I call again, hey, where are we at? You better be putting it on my account. Notes that I'm calling, trying to figure this out. Meanwhile, they're like, oh yeah, you owe us this money, you're late, and everything else. So finally, I literally went to the water department and said, yeah, I need the customer service manager. Showed her all of the stuff, here's what's going on. Had historical trends from years before of those same 4 months that says, this is our historical trend. It's very consistent. This is the date you changed the meter. This is what happened after that. And this is how this happened. Because nobody informed us. They're telling me all the right things. They're like, look, we've got this on your account. Don't pay anything. Let's analyze all this. We'll figure out where it is. I'm like, look, I'm happy to just, here's my historical usage.
Here's what I'm used to paying.
I'll
pay that.
apply that. But, and then the other thing I pointed out to them was, in these 2 periods, from the first period where they didn't bill us to the second period, there was actually a rate increase. So they added everything to the second period at the higher rates, and I'm like, yeah, that's not gonna fly either. And then I also explained to her that we're expending large amounts of staff time trying to fix this problem. This is coming at a large expense, so they actually gave me a claim form, like a claim for damages that once we know what all this is, and Luke is saving every receipt, bringing out a leak detection guy, all of the parts, and then the other offset, which is, first off, I have to commend Luke and the park guys, because they have all spent a tremendous amount of time trying to get this resolved, because if you can't get it resolved, we can't water the parks in a reasonable way.
Correct.
So they,
Not for $19,000.
the efforts that they are putting into this has been and continues to be tremendous, but the other, the opportunity cost of this is, they would be working on a million and one other things. And so much of our resource has been diverted to this one problem that other things are falling behind. That they would have had completed a month ago. So it's really kind of one domino pushing a whole other string of dominoes when, we're kind of so tight. I think the new gentleman who we hired is probably, has learned more in the last month than he has in any of his other professional life months. Because he's been great and kind of getting thrown into the mix, but fortunately we had him and that extra body and people being able to put this towards it. But the water department is telling me all the right things right now. I'll be convinced when they offer a final resolution for all of this, and we see what they wind up doing.
Yeah, there should be something on our account saying, do not do anything until you.
Oh, they have all that. They know. But in the meantime, luckily, through the very hard work and due diligence of Luke and the park staff, at least we can turn the water back on and have regular, because just the water, they were turning the water on, watering, turning the water off, because we were literally losing, 5 to 8 gallons a minute that were just spitting out this hole caused by this kind of what's known in the technical terms a water hammer that caused a professional, or not professional, but a pressure
change. You have a night where you know all about water hammering.
Yeah, so it's been very frustrating. I'm glad that I finally just grabbed all my stuff and went to their office. I was done calling them, and it was just, so now I know who that person is, because if you go to the water department website, that person is nowhere to be found, all you get is generic, customer service this, and so I'm like, I'm going down there. And that was it, and that was the way that finally got to the right person to plead the right case and say, cool, here's what we're dealing with, and even the other guy, when he came out, he's like, oh, I think was a little blown away that we have this 1 meter irrigating probably 4 to 5 acres worth of land and turf, when you add it all up. So it's like, this is a big deal, we need this fixed. And ever since I showed up they've actually been putting a lot more attention on it.
And will they call next time?
Oh, I bet you they will.
Oh, yeah. I
Thank
get
you
the
for
sense
driving
that, one of the technicians that came out to kind of inspect what was going on, and it kind of made it sound like most of, when they do such a thing, it's like a much smaller operation with, a tiny little area, so it's like not a big deal to them, like, oh, this is just like, some small, and then you realize how much park we have and all that, it's like, oh, this is a big operation, so they made a mistake and didn't bother checking with us before doing the work, so, but yeah, our guys have gotten really good at fixing valves and pipe repair. It's been a learning. It's been interesting. So Jimmy, our newest parks staff member, he did his previous job. He did a limited temporary job with the water district, and so I thought I was done doing pipes all day. It's like, no, you're back in it. So
Grab a shovel.
It's been.
But to Luke's point, the system is going to be better and more efficient than it's ever been.
Yeah.
It's 60 years existence of this park by the time they're done.
Yeah, we've revealed more sections and updated, it's like, oh, that's okay, so it has been educational, but yeah, we are behind in a lot of stuff, so this month has been a little stressful, just in terms like the weeds are, sky high in places we gotta get out to, and And there's a bunch of turf treatment that we're trying to do in between all of this. So with three guys, it's like, okay, you do this, you do that, we'll try to work on this. And so it's been definitely a juggling act, and the guys have had great attitudes about it, and everyone's just trying the best to get us ready for summer. But the next few weeks are going to be challenging, to say the least. But things are, we're moving in the right direction, and I don't know, I'm optimistic, but it's gonna be a lot of work to just get everything ready to go. Robin keeps sending me this kind of like soft like to-do list, things that we would have done by now. Something like, oh, just like don't forget that we wanted to clear this path before, and I'm like, I know, we'll get to it.
I'm in a hole right now.
We're in a hole right now. So, but I'm feeling like we'll be able to catch up. So, but yeah, so it's been interesting, but I think we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and we just have to fix a lot of small things now. Now that the big leaks identified and repaired, and then we should be kind of like back to normal within the next week, and everything should be good. So I'm really grateful for some of the cooler weather and some of these like surprising rainy days we've had. The last couple of days have kind of saved us with having the irrigation off. Way more days than we would have ever had at this point. It could have been pretty devastating. So we've been lucky, and we're hopefully everything will be ready to go. So that's basically the main things I wanted to highlight. But let me know if anyone has any questions.
Anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Did you get the 10,000 black marks up?
Well, there's a few you can still see in here.
Do they
I wanted to
practice
just
in
like
here
leave
too?
them. Yeah. They were doing warm-ups in here. I was like, it's wild. This
Did you guys not know about it beforehand?
Well, the Irish dance instructor that we had for like, I don't know, she was here for like 30 years or something.
Andy
And
McBride.
yeah, and she was lovely, and she kind of retired, and we still have an Irish dance program, and she passed it off to another instructor, which has been going great. But she just asked us if she could hold this special testing program. We're like, of course, like we'll do anything for Andy. She's been great. We've had forever. And we didn't really fully understand what it was going to involve. But this is a high level testing for people to be eligible to be instructors in Irish dance, and it was a huge event and went for many hours. So it was just ended up being a lot bigger than what we had really expected. And that level of dancers and whatever they wear this like different style shoe, and this had happened before in the Irish dance class, but we don't have this with our current program. We don't have the black scuff marks. It's just not a thing that I noticed it happened before, like back in the day. But there were just like dozens and dozens of these dancers just all over the place doing this. And we came back on one, like, what happened in here? Like, this is crazy. It was just like the whole room, and they come off, it's just a lot of work. And so we've been, you can see the white, like we've been scrubbing, and just has to be by time.
Just like one of the big.
So I went down to their regional office.
Yeah. So we're like, never again. Glad we could accommodate our lovely instructor with this big thing. We're like, it doesn't need to happen here. It was just one of those things that we didn't know what was the aftermath. But yeah, so not the end of the world, but it was just kind of like, geez, that was a maintenance nightmare. It was a lovely event though. They were very grateful. They paid us a little bit, to be here. So, but yeah, lesson learned.
I laughed. It happens at San Isabella's when they do their St. Patrick's dinner.
Oh, I bet.
And
St.
so-
Patrick's, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's why it made me laugh, so thank you for adding that.
Yeah.
10,000.
We didn't laugh.
No.
Anybody have any other questions for Luke?
I'm good.
Nope, I'm
All
good.
right, thank you.
Thanks to both of you guys and all of your staff. What a great place we
you.
all live, and we're lucky to have you guys.
Ditto.
Any board member items of interest? Did you want to make what you were talking about earlier an item
No,
of interest?
not right now.
Okay.
I think that once we hear back, and since
From
the
the county,
county's gonna,
yeah.
they're gonna work on it, and then once we hear back,
I'll keep you
I'm
updated.
the PA,
Perfect.
which is more.
We
Yes.
haven't heard anything regarding us getting refunded for the work that we did, disaster work. From
No.
FEMA.
No. I did receive that $4,000 check for the emergency response work. I told you that they
Yeah.
released, but I have absolutely nothing left. Their latest update was exactly the same update that I've gotten for probably the past year now whenever I get updates, and I did point that out, that, okay, so your update is, nothing's changed.
Yeah.
It's a no update update.
Right, okay. Anybody else with this item?
We will have next month, ordinance 2025-01 will be back
Yeah.
on for the zone. And also next month is always, when we present, the formal pay schedules for next fiscal year. So that'll be on there again. No surprises with any of those. I mean, you all pretty much know what they are already anyway. And then anything else that possibly comes up between now and then just as an item of interest, it is my kid's 12th birthday
I know, so
today.
let's get you out of here.
See if I can
Right.
get home, eat some cake before he
Yeah,
passes
there
out.
you go.
He's not gonna be able to eat because it's way too late, but I will be like, this is the best cake.
All right, we are officially adjourning. Thank you very much.